Right, David De Gea. It's a funny one, that, isn't it, that situation? Like, let's put aside whether you think he's good enough or not. Whether you think David De Gea is good enough or not, that's up for debate. But he's been an unreal servant to this football club. 12 years, I think, he's had at the club. A bit similar to the amount of time I was at the club. Been Player of the Year, I think, 4 or 5 times in that time. Been phenomenal at times. Been the best player at the club in a few of those years. Had moments where it didn't go well. Lost a bit of form at times, maybe lost confidence. But in the main, has served the club remarkably well. Never been in and out of trouble. Never brought the club into disrepute. Outstanding professional. Great character. One of the boys. And this transfer window, I mean, there's a lot of people calling for him to leave. Some say he should stay, go and get a different goalkeeper. It's a new style of goalkeeper now that they want, and they want to evolve that position. That's all understandable. That's fair. Everyone's entitled to an opinion. Erik ten Hag, at the end of the day, has a type of goalkeeper that he wants. And if David De Gea isn't that goalkeeper, David De Gea has to hold his hands up and say, you know what, I've had a great run here. I love it here. But if the manager doesn't want me, I've got to go. Or I'm going to be number 2, whatever. I'm just a little bit gutted, I've got to be honest with you, with the way that the club have handled the David De Gea situation. Again, I think that comes down to communication. I just think that when you've got big players leaving the football club, I think Man United need to learn from this, because they've made mistakes in the past with players that have left the club, and they've left not feeling that they've been treated maybe. No one's given a divine right to leave a club and on their own terms, but you want your players, especially the ones that have been there a long time and served the club well, to leave with a nice taste in their mouth. Disappointed they got to leave, because no one wants to leave the club that they've grown to love. But it's sour taste sometimes I'm seeing players leave the club with, man. It ain't right. And all it comes down to is a bit of communication, a little bit of appreciation, a little bit of understanding. Do you know what, actually, we probably need to do this a little bit better. There's a lot of stuff going out in the press about the David De Gea and the way he's leaving and the way that he's been left hanging a little bit, it seems. That should be nipped in the bud, man. Just nip that shit in the bud. Because I don't think it's fair on a player, especially like someone like that. Listen, if a player's been there a year or so and it goes out in a bad way, listen, the club can be at fault, or the players at fault, etc., or there's middlemen in the way he's doing that. But I think you owe it to a player who's been there for that long to make sure that they leave on half-decent terms at least. And I think he'd be sitting there, David, just thinking, wow, man, I did never ever dream that I'd leave this football club in this way, in this manner. Like, just be honest, open, cards on the table, let's go. And I think it's disappointing that I look at it now and think, how does David De Gea stay? The only way he stays is if Man United can't get Onana, or whichever goalkeeper it is, and they have to keep David there. It's difficult for him though, isn't it? Because he'll be looking at the club in a different light. This is just business now. It was love before, it's just business now. And I'm not saying that's what David said, but I'm just looking at it from the outside, and that's honestly how I feel. I just think you've just got to... And you know what it is? You contrast that with the way that players that have stayed at clubs for a long time, the way players you see who have been at Real Madrid for years leave Real Madrid. You look at the other day, Benzema, the way he leaves. It's like, it's a lovely way to leave. And he's going to Saudi Arabia, where people have been hammering people for going there. The respect, consideration for that player. You see Bayern players when they leave. You see Barcelona, some of the players when they leave them football clubs. You look at it, you had admiration for the football club, and you think, wow, it's nice what they just put on for him there. I just think I don't know, it's hard. It is hard. And like I said, you don't deserve anything, but you just deserve a little bit of respect, I think, sometimes, and consideration. And there'll be some people that go, oh, you don't deserve nothing. You've been paid well. Get out. You just go. No, you develop a connection with a football club, a relationship that runs deep when you've been there for that long. You don't want it to end on a bad note. You don't want it to end with bad taste in your mouth. You want to leave that club with the best memories. Everyone's done it by the book. Everyone's been respectful. And you walk away with your head held high and you're shaking everyone's hand out there genuinely and going, do you know what? I hope you go and crack it and you go and do well now. I don't know if David walks out, if he walks out right now the way it is, if he walks out feeling them feelings. Disappointing. Hope it gets sorted out anyway. For the club and David's sake. Chelsea. Chelsea have been the story of the summer for me, or one of the stories, in the movement that's been going on there. The amount of players that came in, but also the amount of players that are now kind of leaving and going elsewhere. And who's coming in. You look at their midfield. Jorginho went last season. You've got Ruben Loftus-Cheek on his way out, it seems. Mason Mount on his way out, it seems. Kante gone. There's someone else there as well. But that's four. That's four midfielders. Kovacic, that's five midfielders. Probably two or three of them start in that midfield. So there's no midfield at the club at the moment. You're going to start the season with Conor Gallagher, and who else? So you're sitting there going, wow, who they're going to get? So I've seen reports, Caicedo at Brighton, they're in negotiations or a bid's been put in. They're trying to get that bit of business done. And they've had various other players that they're looking at and will he come, will he go? And Nkunku's come in the door, but again, he's an attacking player. They've got about 8 or 9 attacking players in the wide areas especially. It's phenomenal, unless Nkunku's going to play up top as a number 9, I'm not sure. I don't think that's his best position. I think he can do it. I don't think that's his best position. I think he needs a little bit of a free role in and around the number 9 or from wide areas. He's great. So it'd be interesting. I think the squad lacks balance at the moment. I think they're crying out for some midfield players. I'm so really, really interested to see now where they go with the midfield, because that's an area. They've got Enzo in there. They spent over £100 million on. Who are they going to have in there alongside him? Is it Conor Gallagher? Do they believe that Conor Gallagher's that guy? Caicedo obviously may be coming in, but really, really intrigued because it's a big change now. And you're seeing a lot of business done. They bought young players, a couple of boys from Brazil, a young Jamaican boy. They're buying young talent, Mudryk last season. Big money on these young players, but they're all young players. Are these players they're buying for the future? Is that the new way they're thinking at Chelsea? They've sold a lot of experience and they're bringing players into the squad who seem, for me, who look like development buyers. They're development players. They're going to need time. They're young. Potential. Huge potential. But do Chelsea need for now as well? Do they need to buy a bit more of a mix and blend of players that are going to come in and impact their team? You look at the Arsenal signings. They've just signed Havertz from Chelsea. He goes in and starts. They're going to sign Declan Rice, it seems. He goes in and starts. Timber from Ajax. He probably goes in and starts. If not, he's right around it. And if he goes in, he's not like, I'm not sure, he's experienced enough, played Champions League, won titles at Ajax. Very different to the signings that we're seeing at Chelsea. So is it a change in tact in the way that they're now approaching their recruitment? Really interested to see, once the window finishes, how Chelsea are going to be. And this might be a new way of, a new method, a new recruitment strategy from the Chelsea to what we've seen, because they've always been buying like ready-made. You look down the years, the strikers they used to buy, the Eto's ready-made, Shevchenko ready-made, Crespo even ready-made. You look in midfield, Ballack ready-made. You know what I mean? I can go on and on. There's players, Thiago Silva ready-made. You know, all these players that we're looking and talking about, players that have already made it and are there. They're not players that are coming in and just going to have to need a year or so to bed in. So the Chelsea fans may have to be a little bit patient, man. Very different to what they're used to. But patience isn't a word that we use in the game often, is it? And it's not a word that we give. It's not a thing that we give to people these days that are footballers. Patience. Good luck, Chelsea. All the best.